Hello, welcome to The Next, the podcast that talks about the future and what's going on in the world right now. I have with me my co-host, Ryan.
Hey guys, I'm here this week. My name's Ryan Rivera, founding member, working partner, head of web3 operations for Myco. And we have such an amazing guest, one of my good friends. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone what you're working on?
Hey guys, my name is Saed Ereiqat. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Ryan, for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've recently taken over as director for Dubai for Hadron Founders Club, and I'm looking forward to chat to you guys.
Amazing.
Good. So you've been here a while. You've seen a lot of things happen. You've been in Dubai for what, 17 years, you were saying earlier?
Yeah. So I did high school. I think I came here around 9th grade. Straight from the UK, and then I did university here and started my career in the UAE. So Dubai is pretty much home.
How many tall buildings were here when you moved here?
Oh, quite a lot. But
yeah?
Like one notable thing was that when I first got here, JLT was still it was a ghost town. You know, you drive around there, you'd see a big hole in the floor and a couple of building shells, and it was actually scary if you took a wrong turn instead of going to Marina and you ended up in JLT. You'd be a little bit spooked. I think I ended up moving there a couple of years later though.
Crazy.
So yeah.
And you work in the web3 industry, which Dubai has established itself, as we all know, a global leader in web3. It wasn't the case 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I mean, the web3 space was nothing 10 years ago. But describe to us how you got in and what your views are and what you've done. So, you have a very interesting career so far. You moved to Dubai 17 years ago, did high school, university, but then, I noticed you were at Crypto Oasis before that. Tell us about that and what you built there.
So I'll go back a little bit further than that because my journey actually doesn't start in Web3 and crypto. It starts in fintech and AI. And at the time, it must have been around 2017, 2018 when I started working in that space. Dubai was actually already positioning itself as a leader in the fintech space and in the AI space, with opening up places such like Area 2071 in the Emirates Towers, which was directly focused for supporting AI projects in the UAE. And I actually worked with a accelerator called Fintech Galaxy that were focused on facilitating business between emerging tech fintechs and central banks, banking institutions, banks like FAB, National Bank of Fujairah, and the likes, and sort of bridging that gap between the founders and the institutions, because oftentimes a lot gets lost in translation between founders and these institutional companies or the financial services companies. So Fintech Galaxy was that perfect middleman, and I kind of learned to make my living in that middle ground between these translating the needs of startups to the banks, or translating the needs of the institutions to the startups, and kind of helping the founders that are usually more technical position their products in a way that is attractive to these institutions. So I guess that's relatively a broad niche that you can say I kind of stayed in, continued on working, and even when I went into the Web3 space.
So what about your journey into Web3?
So that's a kind of funny story because it doesn't start professionally. It starts with a coin, like it always does for anyone, I guess. And it's funny, 2018, it must have been Eid. My brother, instead of giving me a cash for an idea, he gave me Ethereum.
Oh.
Okay. And at the time, Ethereum must have been just below $500. And so Ethereum was the first coin I owned, but then the first coin I bought was Doge. Because
really?
I took half my Ethereum and I switched it to Doge.
And what price was Doge then?
It must have been well below a cent. It was 0.00 something.
So you're a billionaire now?
I mean,
almost.
If I still had that wallet, but yeah. It's funny because my brother, he's like, oh, you're crazy for trading Ethereum for like a meme coin and stuff like that. Doge is like a joke. And I'm like, you know what? I think the joke is gonna carry. It's actually gonna be a thing. And that was before meme coins were even properly a thing. But I wish I still had access to that wallet.
I remember that because I remember on Reddit back then, people were giving Doge as a joke.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's a good comment, here's some Doge. And no one had any idea, Only if we knew.
And now you can buy Teslas with Doge, technically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole Doge ecosystem is very, very interesting because it's not just about the token.
Yeah.
It's all about the the Doge guys were here in token 2049.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And there was a bunch of stuff that they were doing, the whole ecosystem, the whole payments ecosystem. It's weird that a meme coin has turned into a whole ecosystem. And that's a good segue to the next bit of the conversation, I guess, which is about community. Mm-hmm. And one thing I see in the Web3 space is community is a very, very big part of it, right? You get a lot of people talking about it. You get a lot of fake community. Mm-hmm. But here is the question. Is crypto very, is there a community in crypto? Is there a real one? Or is it a bit, fake?
I mean, that's relative to where you stand, I guess. You have a lot of in-crowd, out-crowd communities in Web3 as well, where, if you're not part of a specific circle, you won't get into that certain community. But from my perspective, I've always tried to build communities that are inclusive and that are kind of for everyone that is in the space. And I think that there are some real communities in the space, not just IRL communities, but also virtual communities. I think the whole thing
just when you say IRL communities, what do you mean by that? Like most people, if you're in crypto, you understand what that means. Mm-hmm. If you're Gen Z, you'll understand what that means. Yeah. But what is an IRL community?
In real life. IRL stands for in real life. So
versus on a Telegram group or something.
Exactly. So there's plenty of these communities on X, on Telegram, on nowadays even on WhatsApp. But I think on WhatsApp, it's mostly like these weird trading groups you get added to of invest here.
But they're quite scammy, right?
Yeah. Those are all...
There's a lot of scammy groups.
Yeah, loads,
right?
I wouldn't even consider those communities.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's just a money grab.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the big issues with crypto is that a lot of the marketing, a lot of the communities that happen, you get these tokens that say, oh, we have a community of 50,000 people, but they're all bots and they're all farmed communities, right? There some, bot farm in Indonesia or something that is creating, how do you decipher that? And where are the real communities in Web3?
Right, I think we've all seen those videos of hundreds of phones lined up next to each other, just engaging with posts or posting random stuff on groups. I mean, I guess you learn to have an eye for that kind of thing, right? So even if you've been on Instagram for long enough, you can see that, okay, if someone has 50,000 followers and they have 2,000 views on their reels, very likely that maybe their followers are bought, right? I think similarly so when you go into a Telegram community with 100,000 users and you skim through the last 20 or 30 messages, I think you and me could by now tell whether they're bots or they're real users, right?
But with the advent of AI and ChatGPT, that could be faked even further, I think.
Yeah, but there's one thing that you can't fake with the community, because if the community is real on the chart, there's support pressure, buying pressure on the chart.
Yeah,
that's how you know it's real. And one interesting thing...
How do you mean by that? Explain it to someone who doesn't know anything about Web3 or crypto or anything.
Okay, so think of it as a chart or graph like any other investment, right? When there's sell pressure, that means the chart's going down, right? No matter what that number is on social media, if people have belief in what you're building, they will invest to what you're building when they see an opportunity because the price is going down, right? And it's the same thing with in real life community. Web3 is really strange because there's so many scams and bad people and people that you meet here 1 month, they'll be gone next month, you'll never see them again, that the good people kind of find each other. The good communities kind of find each other because, they just keep going. You know what I mean? So I think that's great for community building and, just as well, it's good to find the right people.
Yeah, that's why I kind of focus and laser in on IRL communities. So let me give you a bit of background there as to what I was doing in that space. So just after COVID, around 2020, 2021, summer of 2021 actually, we started up an IRL community. And the idea was that everyone's been cooped up in their houses. Everyone's been working from home. People are just getting back into the groove of working from the office and kind of socially interacting again. And we wanted to create a place and create a spot where these digital and virtual communities can come together in real life. And that's when we created the art community. And we used to meet up every single Friday like clockwork at the same time, at the same place for about 2 years rolling.
And what did you do?
We had people from the Web3 space coming from, so it was cool because people would, at one time, we actually had someone come directly from the airport to our event because they heard about our event and they heard that's where you can meet fellow Web3 people.
Is the event still going?
It's not going anymore. Community is still active, so we've got about 2,000 members on Telegram. But that being said, you know what we were doing at the place was we were highlighting innovation and projects, right? So we'd have every week 2 startups and 2 founders come on stage and give like a 10 to 15 minute presentation about their projects, right? And the crowd would be between 30 to 100 people. It would vary greatly, you know, depending on the season and depending on what we were doing. But yeah, we would have people from the Web3 space, people who are just exploring the Web3 space, want to learn a little bit more, have heard something from their friends and want to kind of get into the thick of it and meet some people and ask some questions. We had a little bit of a focus on the intersection between the creative industry and the Web3 industry, which was sort of a sweet spot for me because I myself consider myself a creative. I like to facilitate space for creatives, and the art community was kind of a perfect place to do that. So we used to have that Friday meetup, but we then also started a bi-monthly meetup on Tuesday at a different location, and that was kind of more focusing on and lasering in on innovation, people who are, let's say, architects moving into the Web3 space, metaverse companies that are building virtual digital twins of buildings for architectural reasons and for demoing, let's say, for example, a real estate. So at the time, for example, I think Damak did something pretty interesting where they had
what did they do?
So they had a metaverse experience of one of their hotels. I believe it was in Seychelles. So that if you wanted to kind of invest into that hotel, you could see and go to the specific room that you were gonna either invest in or visit, and you could see the view of that room.
But this is my problem with the metaverse, right? It's just like a VR. That's it.
We could go on a whole tangent about what's the difference between metaverse and just AR and VR.
Yeah.
I have a couple of definitions in mind. I don't know if they still stick at this day and age, but yeah, like.
So I'm going to have a little rant.
Yeah, please.
Okay. My fundamental issue with the Web3 community and crypto in general is that people and projects are pushing crypto, pushing AI, pushing the next hot thing in a way that could be solved by something very simple. So when people are like big companies, when big companies are saying, hey, we have this new metaverse, this is why the metaverse is dead, right? It's because Meta, the big company, changed its bloody name, banking on this hype. And where is it now? Do we walk around with VR headsets? No, we don't. There is no metaverse, right? And apparently, this is the problem with tech. I think it's a double-edged sword. But I think, on the one hand, projects, companies, founders with cool, crazy ideas are raising tons of money, creating bubbles. And once a bubble is created, it attracts lots of people who want funding, want money, and are pushing ideas and projects that don't really solve a problem, right? And this is my fundamental problem with the metaverse. So if I was to have a debate with you on that, and we can go off on the tangent.
We could fully go on for hours about this, yes.
In a nutshell, what did the metaverse do to further industry, to further humanity, to further the world? I debate this, and I don't see what the metaverse has actually done. And we can have a debate about this right now.
Okay, so For that, I think we kind of need to establish definitions first, right? So when you say the metaverse, what do you define the metaverse as? Because to me, I think any virtual space that you can interact with and you can, like, let's say, for example, a place like World of Warcraft or a place like RuneScape, I think that's almost a metaverse experience, right? Even though, okay, you're not wearing it on a VR goggle, but you are going into a whole online world, like any MMORPG, right?
So that's gaming.
But I still think that's a metaverse experience because you have economy, you have trade, you have interaction with other people and other players. You have potentially your own space that you can personalize. You have your own character that you can personalize. There's a whole element of commerce there, right? So I think just for the sake of this discussion, right, what do you want to define the metaverse as? Where do you set the limits of what the metaverse is? Or what do you need? What does a virtual space need for it to qualify as a metaverse rather than just a VR experience?
We can go and talk about semantics all day long.
Right.
But the NFT space, right, which was, in my view, people trading gifts of monkeys, right? Stupid.
Yeah.
Even in gaming, right? What has it brought? Because, if you look like a game, if you have kids, or if you've heard of a game called Minecraft or Roblox. These are technically metaverses, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right? But they don't need any of the funding or the hype. It's a pretty basic graphic system that has existed for 30 years.
Yep.
That is now cool.
Yep.
And this is my issue. Why did all this money, why was all this hype getting into the metaverse and into NFTs when it actually meant nothing?
I'll tell you what I'll tell you what at the time the promise that I saw in it and what it meant to me.
Right.
Or why, let's say, I would have gotten excited about it as a gamer, right? Because for example, RuneScape specifically was a game that I grew up playing. And if you ask me what did that bring to me as a human being or what did that bring to humanity, I'd tell you that I started playing RuneScape when I first learned English. So it really helped accelerate my English learning. So I learned quite a lot of words that I would have never known at the time. Probably a lot of medieval stuff that didn't matter at the time anymore, but still it was like historical context, right? The other thing that it taught me was kind of a little bit about commerce and trade, a little bit about, let's say, as stupid as it may sound, saving money and like economics and stuff like that, because I'd have to go and sit there and spend time, and I'd get a certain amount of gold depending on what activity I was doing. And the last thing I think, and then the last thing was kind of building relationships with people online. That was like my first ever virtual experience of building relationships online.
So you guys are coming from two different points of view.
Yeah.
You're talking about the money that went into the system and where was there a long-term investment for the ROI of the system. You're coming out from a user experience, right? And it made a change in your life, even if short-term.
Not
right?
the metaverse, gaming.
Like,
let's say those pre-metaverse online
But even
worlds.
in a gaming, like you say, GTA 5, or they're all forms of metaverse, it may not be what you think is world-changing, but for those people experiencing every day, building, those connections with people around the world, it's very life-changing. But you're seeing it from a tech business standpoint.
Yeah.
Right? And you're seeing it from, this is how it helped me.
Yeah.
So you guys are seeing it from two different sides.
I mean, I'm getting to what I think the promise of the metaverse was, even on a business perspective, right? It was the fact that there's huge economies within these games. There's huge black markets around these games of like exchanging accounts for money or selling gold for money. That's technically...
So money laundering.
Again, I don't know if you want to go that far. If like 12-year-olds are laundering money through RuneScape Gold, like I wouldn't go that far as to suspect that, right? But let's say there's huge economies as well around games like Counter-Strike, right? Skins, weapon skins and stuff like that. People are staking weapon skins. So it's a relatively significant addressable market. And I think what the hope is that the metaverse and bringing blockchain into that whole interaction is, first of all, assets would be transferable between games, right? So you don't only own assets in one game. And what that means to me as a gamer is the fact that if I'm investing hundreds of hours into this one game, I now have an asset that I can take with me to the next game, rather than once I'm bored of this game, everything that's there is gone.
Got it. So look, I'm a guy in my 40s.
Okay.
I have 2 teenager kids. They play religiously Minecraft and Roblox.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure a lot of parents get asked by the kids, hey, can you buy me some Robux?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Now, this is the thing that tells me that the whole metaverse Web3 space was a failure. Was, how do you buy Robux?
With your credit card.
Exactly. Right?
Okay.
There's no Web3 element. There's no way of there's no token element. So all these games that came out and all this whole industry that attracted billions of dollars of investment and funding to promise us what you say, a whole economy
an
an ecosystem within the virtual world has been an absolute failure.
I think people were rushing it, because I think to get to that point that we're talking about, right? So let's say, for example, for me, it's a little bit more easy to do, because I have invested hundreds and thousands of hours into games, right? And I have lost, well, let's say I some of these games that I never picked up and played again, technically speaking, completely lost investment of time, right? If I still play the game, okay, you know what? I might have some old weapon skins, some old character skins. Maybe my account might be worth some money that I could sell to someone, but I still play the game, so it doesn't matter to me, right? But I guess to get to that point, we needed a lot more interoperability than I guess the ecosystem was ready for.
Interoperability, it's a word used by product managers in Web3 companies and founders that talks about actually the basis of why we have crypto.
Yeah.
Interoperability, right? And I think the fundamental issue is that founders in Web3 companies, they put the cart before the horse. Meaning they try to solve a problem that doesn't exist. They give you the solution before the problem. So here's a solution. Let's create a problem that fits into this solution because I kind of know a bit of coding and I had a really weird idea in a dream.
You know, someone once told me that blockchain is the solution that is looking for a problem, and that really resonated with me.
And I think this is the problem in blockchain. And I think this is the problem in Web3 and the metaverse, is that we all love the industry for different reasons, right? And you've explained, your journey through it, which is pretty cool. You have your own journey as well.
Yeah.
I have my own journey.
Of course.
But I feel that a lot of the issues that we have today, a lot of the stained reputation for crypto, the reason we have crypto bros who are just basically coming to Dubai and scamming people, right?
Yeah.
Let's be real here.
Yeah.
They exist because they're buying hype. It's hype. It's a solution that doesn't have a problem behind it. And I think if it was the other way around, if we were designing, this is why Apple was so successful. Apple was successful because Steve Jobs would come out and put the tech almost secondary to the solution that he was buying. So he would go in and say, hey guys, people want an Apple Macintosh to do X, Y, Z. When he was challenged on, hey, are you using the latest coding language, or the latest tech? He'd say, no, we're trying to solve a solution. We'll get a solution. We'll find the problem. We'll find how to solve it later. And this is the fundamental problem with Web3 founders, I think, and the metaverse. And this is why the metaverse, in my view, is an absolute failure. But that's my view, and I'm very opinionated.
I think, honestly, I think we're going to come to a point of where the metaverse, where we won't say that anymore. Where we say, okay, you know what, hey, this fad actually kind of picked up. It might be called something else. It might not still be called the metaverse. It might just be called AR and VR, right? But it will have an economy attached to it. But where we stand right now, I think you are accurate to say that it was a fad. So I think the definition I liked the most for the metaverse and what made the most sense to me, especially if you're going to acknowledge the fact that there's an underlying blockchain/crypto element in the metaverse, is it's a virtual experience, okay? It could either be AR or VR, or it could be a character that you're controlling on your PC. So it's technically an MMO experience. MMO stands for Mass Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game, MMORPG, right? So it's a sort of MMO RPG experience with an economy attached to it, and that economy should be blockchain or crypto enabled. At least that's what my definition.
So that's your definition of the metaverse.
My definition of what a proper metaverse should be.
Okay.
But it's important to make a clear distinction between metaverse companies, gaming companies, and crypto companies. So metaverse companies are not necessarily purely gaming companies. Gaming companies, and they're not necessarily purely crypto companies. You could kind of put them all into separate boxes and separate buckets. I think once those lines blur between the three, that's when we'll have like a more successful and, let's say, sustainable metaverse ecosystem, right? When all the gaming projects are implementing crypto and blockchain to facilitate their economies, right? When we're all on a daily basis investing some sort of money or some sort of time into our virtual presence, our virtual representation of ourselves. Now, we might do that as of today on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram. We might do that one day with like a physical manifestation, like a digital physical manifestation of us, that what we want to look like or what we want to be represented in the metaverse. So
avatars.
Avatars, basically. That's what inspired people to go and buy thousands of dollars worth of NFTs and land in the metaverse, right?
Yeah, so, but then this is the thing. So who do they buy those NFTs from?
Okay, let's say, for example, Sandbox, right? They did a huge NFT sale, land sale, and stuff like that, right? I remember there was a time where people were like, oh, I have a plot in the Sandbox close to this guy or close to that guy, right? Like a plot next to some famous person, right? In a digital space.
Yeah.
That was still a flex, that they were like, oh, you know what? He's my neighbor in the metaverse, right? As weird as that sounds, people were really competing with these NFTs and with these metaverse lands as to based on who's their neighbors and who's living next to them.
I think I got the follow-up question for both of you. You come from a point that says, why are these things a failure? And you're coming from a point, the tech hasn't caught up to what the true utility is.
Yeah.
So if the tech hasn't caught up, is something a failure or not?
That's 100% a failure.
You think so?
Yes, absolutely. Because
overpromised, underdelivered, right?
Exactly. Not even that. I think the whole problem is that the tech grew in a way that was not aligned with the problem it was trying to solve.
Yeah, but you could say that about NFTs, people buying pictures of frogs, but that's not really the tech. That's the hype part, like those scammers that come to Dubai.
Right.
But NFTs as a tech, they have a lot of cool
NFTs as a
uses
tech have a great use.
Right.
I agree. But I feel like the industry, now maybe we're coming at it from two different places, right? But I feel like the industry that has employed and championed NFTs, in my opinion, it should be like universities, getting issuing degree certificates as NFTs,
or your driver's license being issued
your driver's
as
license
a
being an
token,
but it's not. It's instead the NFT is pictures of frogs and monkeys, right? And it's not even like it hasn't really caught up with a commercial use as well. Yeah. Now this is sort of a slight detour now, which is these NFTs. A lot of people, me included, put money into NFTs, bought NFTs, and I did it purely for speculation, right? Literally, it's a gamble, right? Ultimately, the NFT space, which has, in my view, been a massive failure, exists because people buy the hype, they put money into something that has no fundamental utility or value, right? You go to the supermarket, you give the supermarket your money, and you get a steak, or you get some bananas, right? There's a utility, there's a transaction there. But in the NFT space, that never really happened, and it's still not happened. the NFT space hyped about 10 years too early, I think, right? Now, here is another sort of detour of what I want, or sort of the next part of this, which is why do like regulators, right? So we have here in the UAE, we have VARA. In Abu Dhabi, we have ADGM. The UAE, and why you're here, is turning itself into one of the biggest biggest hubs for regulatory compliance and regulatory infrastructure for crypto, for the whole crypto industry. So where do you see regulators playing and protecting people, idiots like me, right, who bought an NFT, bought a GIF of a monkey, right, and lost all their money?
I mean, that's a reach, if you ask me. Like where the regulator is going to get involved in your trading of NFTs, I think I don't know if they're going to protect you at that level,
licensing,
right?
For instance, crypto venues.
Right. So I just want to, going back to NFT, metaverse, and that whole craze, and like I want to kind of put a bow on this for you, and tie it up nicely and kind of come back to what that hype was all about, right? I think coming back to what we were initially talking about, it's all about community. It's all about kind of in crowd and out crowd, right? It's all about being part of something that is bigger than you, being part of something that you're passionate about, being part of like a movement, let's say, right? I think a lot of people bought into these NFTs. I mean, maybe not you, right? But some people that were trading NFTs not for just capital gains, but also for the access into these circles and access into these communities that they before never had access to, right? So you have now some of these tech bros who are sitting behind the computer all day, now all of a sudden part of Bored Ape Yacht Club and like getting invited to yacht parties and getting invited to penthouse parties and this type of stuff, right? People started to see that, people started to see people making money off that, and they're like, hey, you know what, we want to be a part of it. Now a lot of people kind of FOMO'd into the market and kind of got into these communities, built their own communities and stuff like that. So I think the main thing that was carrying the hype of this entire space, and probably you might argue that NFTs are dead from that perspective, but I don't think they are, right? Is because I still see some successful...
No. Let me just clarify what I said. I don't think they're dead.
Okay.
But I think the use case
of
has
NFTs
been...
as pictures,
yeah,
NFTs as...
like, for instance, I went to my university, my old university, I went to Imperial College, and I tried to get, for various... here you have to have your degree certificate, like
attested and everything,
right? It's not even Web 2. It's like Web 1.
It's like
they send you a physical piece of paper,
process,
right? And it has to be stamped
physically, yeah.
Right? That's rubbish.
Yeah,
that's absolute trash. It should be an NFT. It should be immutable on the blockchain. It should be, and this is where I see the real value of NFTs. Your driving licenses, you said, right? I have to go and I get to pay if. Yeah, in this country, you can't check into a hotel
without your Emirates
without
ID.
a physical Emirates ID.
Yeah,
right, and that can be faked.
of course.
Okay, but I'm just saying. You said that use case of the GIFs and the monkeys and the pictures, right? That's dead. I don't think so.
Really?
I think there's still active NFT communities. I think people are still excited to be part of these communities.
But they're tiny people. Come on.
Relative. Let's put it that way. Again, from my perspective, I see very vibrant communities, right? I see, for example, Pudgy Penguins did an amazing takeover last Token 2049 over here in Dubai. People were super hyped about that. I was excited about it. I'm not a Pudgy holder, but I wished I was, or I wished I had bought a Pudgy Penguin early on.
What did you gain from buying a Pudgy Penguin?
I didn't. Again, I mean, I have a very limited number of NFTs, and I've bought and sold only one. The rest I've just bought and kept because I wanted to be a part of the community. Let's say 8 out of 10 of those communities, I never got anything out of. But 2 out of those communities, I actually got some really good introductions to some very influential people in the Web3 space. I met some whales from certain ecosystems from those communities. I got some leads to host events for people in Dubai from those communities.
Right.
So I think there is still some...
So for you personally, what you're saying is for you personally and professionally, the NFT, it created a community, right? People trading NFTs. It was like almost like a subculture.
Not just for me.
Yeah,
Again,
for
I
all
think
these people,
I was at it from a very like low touch perspective,
Yeah.
right? Like I wasn't like super deeply into the NFT space. I had a lot of friends that were. I was hanging around people that were. I enjoyed some of that access, right? But I think as a whole, that was the main thing that people kind of took out of that, and that was the main thing that people wanted to get out of it. That network, that connection, being part of something.
Is community the biggest use case in blockchain?
Oh, I mean, you know what?
No, of course not.
You don't think so?
I think community is actually the death of blockchain.
No.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. No, I'll tell you why.
Same.
Okay, it's controversial, but I think the crypto community was buoyed. Even Bitcoin, Bitcoin doesn't really have a utility, or it's debatable whether it's a store of value. But now we're finding the US government talking about buying Bitcoin as a treasury asset. Yeah. Okay, that was fueled by community. 100%. Agree with you there. But communities are still people.
Yeah.
If it's not a token or a subculture, it will be Roblox. It would be, our kids will be talking to each other on Roblox or on I don't know, like on what's the other games, man? I've forgotten.
Minecraft.
Yeah. Right? That's the whole point. And that's where I think community ends. Community starts. But if we have a big vision of what blockchain will do to our world, whether it's in fintech, whether it's in biotech, whether it's in AI, whether it's in governmental operations, right? CBDCs. I mean, that's a great how we pay for things, money, the movement of money, the movement of trade around the world. That's where I think blockchain really makes a difference. But when we talk about community, I think, yes, it creates like the whole crypto and Web3 ecosystem was born out of a very cool subculture.
Yep.
And one that probably, if you're of a certain age, it resonates more than if you're in your 40s or your 50s. Do you agree?
I think you're seeing it from two different perspectives, because I think you're seeing the tech work at the long end. Like, how does it get there?
Yeah.
And the only difference is someone buying into that tech, okay, this works to solve a gap. But then there's the different in community where something, maybe it's just marketing, or maybe it does solve a gap, but you're connected with the other person that believes into it, So I feel like it's not all, your point's correct, but I also feel the community point is correct as well.
Look, I don't think community per se is a use case of blockchain at all. I mean, it's not necessarily using the technology unless you have an NFT attached to it, right? Yeah. But you need to consider that I think the biggest movements of blockchain were born out of these small communities, right? So Ethereum Foundation and the first contributors to the Ethereum network were meeting up on like a weekly or monthly basis at a bar in Toronto, somewhere in Canada. And that's where Vitalik met his co-founders, right? Yeah. And that's where then kind of Ethereum was born. So community facilitates, I guess, a lot of good things in the blockchain space. Is it necessarily like the most important or the best use case of the blockchain? I don't necessarily think so. I think ultimately.
Do you agree with me?
Loosely. I mean, I think we come to the same point that the answer is no. Yeah. Blockchain is not, community is not the biggest use case of blockchain. But community is definitely a huge part of what makes blockchain successful. And it's a huge measure of success for a lot of blockchains as well.
So let me ask you a question. How do regulators, I asked this question before, but I'll ask it a different way. How do regulators fit into all of this? How does regulation fit into all of this?
Right.
From your perspective,
right? I'll kind of answer an earlier question you asked as well with that, and give you a little bit of background about my involvement with regulation, because I think I don't have your traditional crypto bros outlook on regulation. I'm actually a big supporter of regulation. So back in 2019 and 2020, when I first kind of started dabbling in the space, the Securities and Commodities Authority of the UAE, ESCA, exactly, issued their first guidance paper for crypto and blockchain businesses. Right. So at that time, they said that they want to regulate anything from financial services to token issuance to exchange, OTC and whatnot. That's going to be happening in the crypto space, right? Based on that guidance paper, on that definition of what these activities were, we were able to define a non-regulated licensing framework similar to the DLT regulations that happened in Switzerland.
What does that mean? What does a non-regulated licensing framework mean?
Right. So to kind of demystify that a little bit, you can get two types of business, or you can get a bunch of different types of business licenses here in the UAE. Some of these business licenses will require you to get a third-party approval from the relevant regulator in the space. So let's say, for example, if you want to get like a training license and you want to give people certificates, you need a special approval from the KHDA, which is the Knowledge and Human Development Authority, right? Similarly, nowadays, if you want to get a sort of crypto license and like a regulated crypto license, you need to get a third-party approval from the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority, right?
So VARA is the regulator.
VARA is the regulator.
And when you say you get a license, I'm very familiar with this.
Yeah.
It's defined by a certain activity,
exactly.
what you're going to be doing.
Exactly.
So a VASP, any VASP will have to have a broker-dealer license or a custodial license or whatever, right?
So we defined the licenses that didn't necessarily need you to get fully regulated, which was, for example, a distributed ledger technology service provider license. So that was something where you could offer blockchain services to third parties, right? So you could build tech for a third party, and that third party could implement that tech, for example.
Right.
The other one was a proprietary trading license, which with your own capital allowed you to buy and sell crypto assets and the capital of your investors. But the caveat here was that you couldn't take any third-party capital. If you wanted to take third-party capital, you'd need to be then regulated.
So as in an LP-GP structure or in a fund structure, when you say third-party capital, right?
Yeah, let's say, for example, I have that proprietary trading license. I tell you, Ahmed, hey, come give me $100,000. I'll trade that on your behalf and pay you back your...
So usually,
your revenue. You couldn't do that with the proprietary trading license.
Right.
Right.
So usually in traditional finance,
yeah,
you have what's called an investment manager.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have a fund, right? A fund has a GP, general partner, and an LP. LP is the kind of silent investor into the fund.
Yeah, so we kind of created those licenses in mind that you wouldn't be able to do that because that would have to be regulated, right? So we built it in a way, and we created certain limitations for these licenses that would not allow you to manage it as a fund, but you could do what you wanted with your own capital. So coming back to kind of where that regulation was there then and where it stands now, right? So the Securities and Commodities Authority issued their guidance paper. We started onboarding Web3 companies into these non-regulated licensing frameworks with the DMCC Crypto Center, which was a sort of first of its kind co-working space supporting Web3 founders in the UAE. In the space of about 2 years, it grew from about 300 Web3 companies in the UAE to about 2,000 Web3 companies in the UAE.
But they still needed a license from VARA.
VARA didn't exist yet.
Right.
Or
like ADGM?
ADGM and DIFC are completely separate regulatory environments.
Yes.
Right? So they did have some frameworks for Web3 companies, but they had very few companies that were regulated out of their ecosystems back then. So again, bringing on the kind of non-regulated licensing framework was the first of its kind because you wouldn't need to be fully regulated to be working in the Web3 space.
Would you be able to? Would you have to? Could you? I mean, are you sure about this? I mean,
again, this is 3 years ago, right?
This is
before VARA was a thing, right? Now,
how have you seen the evolution over the last? One of the biggest problems I'll say it now about regulators and regulation is that it never really kept up with the companies it was trying to regulate. Meaning there's a lot of companies that grew too quickly. You know, we've had some huge, FTX, great example. That grew too quickly, and the regulators could not keep up.
Right.
Do you think that gap has narrowed?
Okay, I mean, if you look at the journey of how the regulation developed over here, right? You had the Securities and Commodities Authority issue their guidance paper. We came in, we onboarded companies into DMCC Crypto Center. There was more and more attraction of Web3 companies into the UAE. You could say that the Securities and Commodities Authority was relatively not fully equipped to handle all of that influx of crypto-related businesses that they now wanted to be regulated. You could say that there was maybe not enough expertise on their side. You could say that maybe there was not enough specifically crypto-relevant expertise, because the SCA is like a regulator for traditional businesses, right? For
finance, like for
financial
companies,
right?
local financial companies.
So they could have been approaching it a little bit differently and trying to regulate them similarly to the finance companies. And that's where sort of VARA came in, right? VARA said that, you know what, we need a specific regulator for these businesses. We can't just kind of give them the same regulator as what the finance companies are getting. There's very specific expertise that is required in assessing these companies. There's very specific ways of dealing with these types of companies. So that's how VARA was born, right? Yeah. So I think VARA was born out of a response to that, to bridging that gap that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because you have globally a lot of these financial regulators are the ones that are looking at regulating these crypto companies, whereas VARA is a crypto-first regulator, fully focused on blockchain, fully focused on crypto. And I
agree. And I think also, sorry to interrupt, but I think also there's not just VARA, there's FSRA in Abu Dhabi. There's a central bank, the UAE central bank, which I guess within the full industry and ecosystem regulates certain bits of it, right? So if you look at the payment token regulation, for instance, that comes under central bank. The whole thing here, which is really cool, I think, is that the UAE regulators have really moved. They're so far ahead of pretty much every single other regulator in the world. If you look at the FCA in the UK, or you look at the SEC in the US, and the Fed, dude, they're like light years away. Yeah. And the reason is because I think the UAE is nimble, it's forward thinking, it's a futuristic city, or futuristic country, right? And when it comes to blockchain and crypto and regulation of crypto from the top down, there's a very, very strong push. But if you look at the UK is finished, man. Like the FCA is about 10 years, I would say, 8 to 10 years. Maybe I'm being aggressive here, but they're about 8 to 10 years behind. Europe has just released MiGA 2 years ago, which is an absolute disaster in my view, because it's over-regulated. It's put a lot of startups out of business because it's just too expensive and too onerous to do. And again, it's too clunky. Whereas the UAE, I think, has been terrific in actually like meeting the challenges, I think, of a regulated company, and actually allowing us to even have this debate now.
Yeah. But isn't that the fine thing of regulation? Like regulating just enough that businesses thrive, that they're not over-regulated, but just enough so the users feel secure in investing in those.
In my view, regulation is supposed to do two things. It's supposed to not hinder business and at the same time protect all the different parties involved, stakeholders, right?
I just want to kind of circle back into the regulatory environments, or the different regulatory environments available over here, right? So tracing it back to starting up with the SCA, right? VARA being born, there's always been the FSRA and the DFSA, right? So it's funny that you mentioned the UK being so behind, because the FSRA and the DFSA are actually built on UK common law, right? And something that you need to kind of keep in mind here as well is that I know for sure the DFSA was built out of royal decree. We both know that VARA was kind of also built out of royal decree, right? So there was a sheikh that came and said, hey, you know what, we need this to facilitate business in the UAE. And then they came up with this plan of having a regulator, which is a DFSA, which is based on UK common law, which all the international financial companies already trust. They already have setups with these environments, with these same laws and with these same regulations. So it was easy for them to then come and build their businesses over here. And I think thanks to the DFSA, we have guys like BlackRock in the DIFC. Right, you have Julius Baer and BlackRock on the same floor and the same tower.
You have all the major
in
investment banks in
exactly.
the DIFC, and right. Like every single Wall Street firm, you know, is in the DIFC. And if they're not, they're always asking the question why.
Right, and then if they're not in DIFC, they're in ADGM. Yeah, right. That's the thing. Right, and you know we can go on with lengths about how Abu Dhabi is the capital of capital and how you know you've got very significant investment funds out of that ecosystem. Right now, these guys also came into play when crypto regulation started to move. So both the DFSA and ADGM were very quick to move in implementing crypto regulation. I think that's something that you maybe can go into a little bit more detail on. You have personal experience with. I myself work closely alongside DFSA on recently the AI initiative that they've launched. So they've launched the Dubai AI campus, which was also, again, you know, now you see how forward thinking the leadership of the UAE is, right? Again, this was
Tell us more about the AI campus.
Right. So the Dubai AI campus is an initiative under the patronage of His Highness, again, by Sheikh Fazza, which is kind of enabling AI companies in the space in the UAE, creating a home for AI companies, a physical place that they can come and interact and host events and do what they need to do, build their tech out, as well as a support system and a support infrastructure from different government and semi-government companies. So you've got, for example, within the AI campus, Dubai Commercial Bank supporting AI projects. You've got having an accelerator and incubator supporting AI projects, right? And it's similar to, let's say, the DIFC did something a few years back called the FinTech Hive, which was kind of, it was the FinTech Hive gave birth to some of the biggest FinTech startups that we used on a day-to-day basis.
Like what?
If I'm not mistaken, buy now, pay later, that whole buy now, pay later movement in the UAE, the initial companies that were working in that space were born out of the FinTech Hive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Similarly, so, you know, you've got the real estate investment platform Stake, one of the most successful companies out of the IFC right now, also built under the FinTech Hive ecosystem, right? So you've got this very well refined and very well defined ecosystem for fintech startups to thrive, and they replicated then that same model for AI startups, right? So that was then where the Dubai AI campus was born. That being said, you know, they also have very forward-thinking crypto regulation, specifically in the DFSA. I think they were very early to start talking about stablecoin regulation, to start talking about RWA regulation and these types of things, right? And I think ADGM also strides ahead when it comes to that, right? The FSRA. And I think you have also your personal experience with them.
Yeah.
On the note of IRL communities, Hadron Founders Club has just opened the doors to a community space in Al Khoz. So we have a total of like 13,000 square foot space. Upstairs we've got the Polygon office, and downstairs we've got a multi-purpose event space. The fact that we're in the heart of Al Khoz, I want to make sure that the space has a creative element. So we are continuously going to be hosting events that are focused around the creative space, but obviously also the typical AI and blockchain related events and meetups. But it'll also have a focus on wellness, where, you know what, we want to make sure that founders are also taken care of on their mental side, because being a founder can be very tiring. Solo journeys we try to kind of make those solo founder journeys easier by creating a community of mentors and peers and partners that you can tap into. And now, for the first time, we have a physical space that's going to be permanent in the UAE. So feel free to drop by if you're in the Qoz area. We'll
check it out.
Yeah, you should definitely come by. We have a lot of events planned for the season coming up. So I host my weekly. I'm gonna start hosting the weekly community events over there. So we're gonna do a builders breakfast. We're gonna do open mic pitching events that we've been hosting for the past 2 years. Kind of putting investors with startup founders. We've taken a completely different approach to the pitches. It's just an elevator pitch, no presentation, and kind of a raw feedback for the founders to kind of perfect that. So that's been kind of what I've been building in the past couple of months.
Amazing. No, that's good. That's very cool.
That's awesome.
So we're going to be doing this thing called the rapid fire session, right? It's 4 questions. This podcast is called The Next. Mm-hmm. So we talk about, as we've been doing, talking about the future, talking about, application of these next gen industries to solving real life problems, right? And The Next talks about obviously what's coming next. Mm-hmm. Okay. So first question, what is the next for Dubai?
I think Dubai has already positioned itself as a hub for people from all over the world. I think what's next for Dubai is sort of huge population growth. For people from all over the world, they're going to start coming here, investing their money here, parking capital here, and having a second home at least here.
And what's next after that?
What's next after that? God knows. I mean, they've already built so deep into the desert, but there's still more desert to build on. So I think we're just going to keep seeing this country accelerate in terms of what they're going to be building in terms of physical spaces, communities, and stuff like that.
Saad, what's next for you?
What's next for me? Hadron Founders Club for the next year. I'm kind of focused on... I don't think very long term ahead. So let's say, for example, next 3 months, I've got Token 2049 in Singapore coming up. We'll be announcing a new acceleration cohort for Hadron, and we'll be kind of focused on creating the place as a community hub, bringing people there, having a vibrant community that people can tap into easily.
And what's next for humanity?
I think
it's a big question.
Yeah, I think slowly but surely we're moving towards augmented humans, right? So I saw a post recently about
augmented humans,
what is it? I saw something about the augmented Olympics or something like that, right? Where people have some sort of biotech implanted in them, right? So I think slowly but surely we're moving to humanity having augmented pieces within their bloodstreams, but also like limbs and body parts enhanced by technology.
That's crazy. That's not. I've never heard that before.
I mean, I think in our lifetime we'll see that.
No, amazing.
Yeah.
What's next for the industry?
What's next for the industry that you operate in?
I think right now RWAs and payments is a huge focus. I hope that within the next couple of years, we'll see stablecoin regulation develop in a way that will be more enabling for the space. And I hope to see more RWA-related initiatives, specifically out of the UAE, because it's been such a forward-thinking place when it comes to that.
And what do you think of the Genius Act?
The?
Genius Act.
I don't know the Genius Act.
Oh, okay.
What is the Genius
saying
Act?
Stablecoin regulation. It's basically a new set of regulatory acts that came out of the US that help the US effectively create dominance over stablecoins, being dollar dominance over the stablecoins. It's a very big topic.
Okay, that's probably why I don't know it, because I know nothing about sort of the US. I have a complete like horse claps when it comes to what's going on in the US.
Right.
But I think it's just a move to monopolizing it, right? And I think it's just a play to assert dominance in a space that should ultimately be democratically run and democratically governed.
So stablecoins should be democratically governed.
I mean, at least transparent. Let's put it that way, right?
Stablecoins are, exactly. No, I agree.
Right, so yeah.
Good.
At least, we should be able to know what's going on, right? And the whoever uses stablecoins should have that access, right? In the spirit of blockchain.
Great. Well, Saad, thanks a lot for your time today.
My pleasure.
It's a really fun discussion. Ryan, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks everyone for joining the next.